You don't always know when it happens. One day you're included, surrounded, connected, then suddenly there's silence. The messages stop. The energy shifts. People start treating your presence as optional. You become a background character in rooms where you once felt central. And no one really says goodbye. They just stop showing up. At first you tell yourself it's just a phase. They're busy. You're busy. Life's moving fast. You make excuses for their absence while ignoring the feeling in your gut. But eventually you realize you've been left behind, and it hurts more than you expected. Not because you were weak, but because you showed up, and they didn't. Let's be real. Being alone wasn't part of the plan. You didn't ask to be isolated. You didn't expect the people you supported to go quiet when it was your turn to fall. You didn't see it coming, that the phone would stop ringing, that the group would move on without you, that your name would be missing from conversations. And it's not even dramatic. That's the worst part. It's quiet, subtle, unspoken. The silence isn't just external, it gets inside you. It starts asking questions like, was I too much? Did I matter at all? Am I being punished for changing? But you know deep down, this isn't about punishment. It's about transition. And transitions often begin with letting go. Not of people necessarily, but of the illusion that they were always meant to stay. Here's the thing. We don't talk enough about the pain of outgrowing places you used to belong. When you're evolving, there's a point where your energy no longer fits the old container. And the people who were comfortable with your smaller self, they don't know what to do with the newer version of you. The one that's asking bigger questions, setting firmer boundaries, choosing peace over performance. So they fade. They don't confront, they don't explain, they just stop inviting. And suddenly you're alone. But here's what no one told you. The silence isn't empty. It's sacred. It's not abandonment. It's realignment. This is the beginning of a phase most people never talk about publicly. The one where you walk alone. Not because you're broken, but because you're building. There's a difference between being alone and being lonely. One is a state, the other is a story. And when you stop telling the story that you're unwanted, you start realizing something powerful. You weren't rejected. You were redirected. Now, don't get me wrong. This still hurts. You're allowed to feel that. It's okay to miss people who were wrong for you. It's okay to grieve versions of you that once needed them. It's okay to sit in the quiet and admit that you're scared. You're human. This is real. But just because it's painful doesn't mean it's permanent. And just because you're walking alone right now doesn't mean you'll be alone forever. In fact, this chapter, this is where the real you is born. Because in the silence, you start to hear a different voice. Not theirs, yours. Not the filtered version you presented to keep the peace, but the honest one, the raw one, the voice that says, you've been living under the expectations of others for too long. Now it's time to meet yourself. You start making decisions not based on approval, but alignment. You stop explaining your value because you remember it. You stop shrinking to fit because there's no one left to perform for. It's in this space that you finally ask the real questions. What do I believe? What do I want to build? What kind of life actually feels like mine? This is where the lone wolf path begins. Not as a brand, not as a mood, but as a necessity. Because once you stop looking for belonging outside of you, you realize you were never meant to blend in. You were meant to break form. You were meant to walk where few go, so you could become someone few ever become. And that path, it almost always starts in isolation. Look, being a lone wolf isn't about bitterness. It's not about proving people wrong or flexing your silence. It's about finding your own rhythm. It's about waking up and choosing integrity over comfort. It's about honoring your own values even when they cost you community. It's about becoming whole without needing to be completed by attention, approval, or applause. That's not lonely. That's liberating. Most people never get here. They keep going back to the old crowd, the old roles, the old identity. They'd rather stay somewhere they don't belong than risk walking into the unknown. But you stayed. You chose to sit with the silence instead of filling it with noise. You chose to feel instead of numb. You chose depth over distraction. And because of that, you're not behind. You're ahead, not in numbers, but in clarity, not in followers, but in foundation, not in likes, but in truth. So if you're here, walking quietly, wondering why it feels so hard right now, remember this. This is the season where the weak leave and the strong are forged. This is the part where the story gets quiet, not because it's ending, but because something powerful is being written beneath the surface. Stay with it. Keep walking. You're not being erased. You're being refined. The beautiful thing about solitude is this. At some point, it stops feeling like punishment, and it starts feeling like power. No one tells you this when it begins. They don't tell you that the silence will teach you, that the space you feared would consume you will become the very ground you rebuild yourself on. But that's what happens. Slowly, quietly, day by day, you stop waiting to be saved and start becoming someone worth saving. This is where the real work begins. You start noticing your patterns, where you've been performing instead of living, where you've been tolerating what you should have walked away from, where you've been betraying yourself just to belong. It's uncomfortable. You see all the places where you gave too much, stayed too long, trusted too quickly, explained yourself too often. You feel exposed, stripped down, naked in your own life. But that's what makes this part powerful. Because when everything is gone, you finally see what was real. And now you get to choose what stays. This phase, it's not about proving anything. It's not about revenge, not about making noise, not about announcing your glow up. It's about foundation. You start waking up earlier, not because it's trendy, but because your mind needs peace before the world intrudes. You start taking care of your body, not for validation, but because it's carrying you through a battlefield. You write, you reflect, you pause, you ask deeper questions. What do I actually want? Who am I when no one is watching? What part of me is still waiting for approval I no longer need? This isn't aesthetic, it's alignment. This is the season of rebuilding from the inside out. A lone wolf doesn't walk away from the pack to be dramatic. They walk away to get clear. They're not angry, they're not broken, they're focused. They're moving in a direction that doesn't require followers, because they know the path they're on isn't for everyone. And that's the point. Let's talk about energy for a moment. When you're alone long enough, you start to understand the cost of access. Not everyone deserves your time. Not everyone earns the right to hear your story. Not everyone belongs in your inner world. Before you let people in just to feel less alone. Now, you'd rather walk alone in peace than walk with people who drain your soul. That shift, it's not cold, it's clarity. You're not becoming harder, you're becoming cleaner. Your boundaries stop being about defense. They become an act of self-respect. You no longer need to explain them. You just live them. And the people who get it, they feel it. The people who don't, they fade. Either way, you're fine. Because you're not choosing from fear anymore. You're choosing from standards. This is also the phase where you stop searching for a finish line. You realize there's no arrival. There's only refinement. You stop chasing the version of yourself that's finally fixed. And you start honoring the one that's showing up, even in the mess. You learn to celebrate the days you simply kept going. The mornings you got out of bed when you didn't want to. The nights you didn't text back when loneliness begged you to. These aren't small things. They're proof. Proof that you're becoming someone different, someone steady, someone quiet and powerful. In this season, you also learn what real strength looks like. It's not the loud, flashy kind. It's not measured in followers or aesthetic routines. It's the kind that no one sees. Saying no when your old self would have said yes. Letting go of people you still love because they don't love you in ways that honor you. Walking away from chaos, even when you're addicted to fixing it. Choosing peace over potential. Resting without guilt. Choosing depth over distraction. This kind of strength, it's earned in the dark. It's built in the days when no one's clapping, when no one knows how hard it is. But you keep going anyway. That's what makes you a lone wolf. Not because you're alone, but because you've learned to lead yourself. Let me say this clearly. You are not broken because you're walking alone. You're becoming someone who knows how to walk through fire and not burn out. You're not dangerous because you're silent. You're powerful because you don't need to shout. You're not too much. You've just outgrown needing to be small. And yes, you will outgrow a lot during this phase. People, patterns, preferences, even parts of yourself. That's not loss, that's liberation. And soon, you'll start to notice something else. The quiet feels good. The solitude becomes your sanctuary. You're no longer afraid of being alone, because now you know, being alone isn't something to fix. It's where you finally found yourself. You're no longer craving company. You're protecting your peace. You're no longer trying to impress. You're anchored in truth. You're no longer running away. You're rising up. So when the world starts to notice you again, when they ask where you've been, you won't need to explain. Your presence will speak for itself, not loud, not flashy, just calm, grounded, whole. Because that's what a lone wolf becomes when they rebuild in the dark. You've walked the hard road. You've disappeared into your own silence, ripped out your patterns by the roots, learned to breathe without applause, to rise without rescue. And now you're back, but not like before, because this time you didn't return needing to be seen. You returned because you no longer need to be found. There's something different in your presence now. People feel it, even if they can't explain it. It's in the way you walk into a room with nothing to prove, the way you listen without reacting, the way your peace is so thick it makes others sit up straighter. You don't beg for attention. You don't seek validation. You don't play roles anymore. You simply are. And that is your leadership. Let's make something clear. Leadership isn't about position. It's not about followers or titles or reach. True leadership is quiet. It's magnetic, not performative. It's the ability to hold your center while the world tries to pull you out of it. It's the way you say no without guilt. The way you set boundaries that don't need defending. The way your consistency does more than any motivational speech ever could. This is the alpha returning, not to dominate, but to guide. You're not the loudest in the room now. You're the one who doesn't flinch when things get real. The one people turn to, not because you fixed them, but because you fixed yourself. You don't save people, you show them what saving yourself looks like. You don't carry their weight, you carry your example. You don't push any brims. You pull by standing in your truth, unmoved. And yes, now they start to come back. The ones who didn't believe, the ones who couldn't see, the ones who once questioned your silence, now drawn to your clarity. But here's the catch. You don't need them anymore. That doesn't mean you shut them out. It just means you don't chase the ones who never stayed. You don't hand out access like you used to, because now your energy is earned, and your time, it's sacred. You've become the person you used to need. That's what makes you different. You're not still trying to be liked. You're not still molding yourself to be digestible. You're not still dimming yourself for comfort. You shine now, even when no one's looking. You rest now without guilt. You give without leaking. You lead not with ego, but with essence. You understand now that not everyone's supposed to walk with you. Some were lessons, some were mirrors, some were detours, and you're done grieving the spaces that couldn't hold you, because now you've become the space. This version of you, they don't even recognize it, because they never saw who you were becoming. They only saw who you were willing to be for them. But now you are done bending. Now you are building. You're building a life that makes your past self proud and your future self inevitable. A life not rooted in attention but in alignment, not powered by spite but by sovereignty. And now you realize something else. You never needed to prove them wrong. You just needed to become someone who no longer cared if they were right. That's freedom. That's alpha energy. Let me say this to you directly. You walked alone. You healed alone. You rose alone. And now you lead. Maybe not a crowd, maybe not a team, maybe not in the way the world measures success. But you lead with your presence, with your integrity, with your ability to stay centered while others drift. That's a different kind of power, the kind that doesn't need recognition to be real, the kind that changes rooms without changing volume. Eventually, you'll meet others like you, not loud, not needy, not trying to be seen, but steady. And when you recognize them, you won't have to explain yourself. They'll feel you like you feel them. Because once you walk through the fire alone, you develop a radar for people who've done the same. You move different, you trust slower, you value deeper, and you no longer fear solitude because you turn solitude into sanctuary. Here's the final truth. You don't have to go back, not to the version of you that tolerated too much, not to the places where you were misunderstood, not to the dynamics that drained you. You didn't walk through the dark just to go back to pretending in the light. You came back to embody peace, to walk slow, to stand firm, to protect your energy like it's sacred, because now it is. You are the lone wolf who returned with a different kind of fire, not to burn things down, but to light the path for yourself and for those still walking in the dark. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be real. You're not here to chase. You're here to create. You're not here to lead loudly. You're here to walk so fully in your truth that others remember their own. So no, you're not the same. And that's a good thing, because the version of you who needed approval didn't make it. But the version who stands here now, that one doesn't just survive, they lead.